I already copy and paste it for the attendance form. Okay, so educators, please take a look on your chat box. Bapak dan Ibu, kami harapkan untuk dapat melakukan pengisian attendance form yang sudah kami bagikan. Bisa melakukan pemindaian dari QR code yang sudah disediakan, or you can copy paste the link to your browser. Kami akan berikan waktu sekitar 2 menit untuk melakukan pengisian. Okay, thank you, educators. All right, now for your information, educators, our session today attended by 119 participants from all over Indonesia. So thanks to the advancement of technology, so we can virtually meet here to learn and grow together. Jadi Bapak dan Ibu sudah sekitar 119 orang yang terdaftar di dalam Zoom meeting kita pada siang hari ini. Luar biasa sekali ya Bapak dan Ibu. And as part of our commitment to build a better education in Indonesia, Mentari Group has conducted hundreds of training sessions with more than 31,000 participants from more than 9,000 schools, and all of them were from 160 different cities in Indonesia. So that's as part of our commitment to build a better education in Indonesia. Educators, please welcome Mr. Todd Cordy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Naufal and Miss Ira, for your introductions and information. And welcome to everybody that's joining us today, all 119, I think we said before. So if you could give me either a thumbs up, how you're feeling, happy, sad, are we tired? It's getting towards the end of the year. Just so that I can see that everybody can hear me. Are you good? Great. Yes. Fantastic. Yes, my name is Todd, and I'm the head of the English department for Mentari Teachers Academy. I'm also the team leader for Mentari assessment for Cambridge exams. So I manage our team of about 80 speaking examiners that work for Mentari assessment, and we are the biggest Cambridge assessment center in Indonesia. So yes, I do a lot of work with assessment, and we're talking today about assessment for primary speaking and writing. I'm not here to tell you to follow one system. I'm using the CEFR and Cambridge for ideas, but every school is different. Every school has a different curriculum. So mostly I'm here to share ideas and also to answer questions that you might have about assessment and its purpose and how to do it and what to assess. Before we begin, let's start with a little icebreaker activity. Okay, this activity is called Show Me. So I want everybody to show me. That means hold up to the webcam or your phone camera, whatever you're using, something, an object that starts with S. For example, I have scissors. So I'm going to hold up scissors. Can everybody hold up, look around and find something that starts with S? And now, Phil, can you tell me who's holding up some objects and what are they holding up?
Okay, let me see. Okay, so Miss Yagiska holds scissor.
Okay, good.
Yeah, hold scissors.
The scissors, good.
Okay.
Anything else that people can think of that starts with S that they can hold up and show me?
Ostisma, scissors also.
Great.
What is that? Oh, Miss Jenny, shoes.
Oh, good. Take your shoe off and show me. I hope the smell is okay.
Okay, I think Miss Christine, is that sauce? I'm not sure about it.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Anybody else? Great. Philip, you've got scissors as well.
I think sticker
great.
from Miss Payal. Mr. Muhammad, holding a sandal. Spyglass. Oh, okay. That's a
spoon.
spyglass.
Thank you, Miss Tree. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
Next activity is this time, show me an action. So not an object, but an action with your face or your body that starts with the letter C. Can people show me something that starts with the letter C? Okay.
C. Okay. Someone start to look, cry.
Yes, Miss Lita, I think that was you who's crying. Okay, good clapping. Great. Anything else?
Crying.
Catching. I think that was Mr. Carr.
Someone like calving.
Christine. Christine, what are you doing there? You're climbing. Great, thank you, Miss Christine. You're climbing. Good. Yes, good. I think I can see someone cooking, perhaps. Okay, fantastic. Miss Wayu, good calling. Excellent. Okay, and you can help your students if you use this as a warm-up activity with some pictures. Cough, but of course, if we're coughing, cover your face, please. Next, show me something that ends with the letter E. This is a bit more challenging for students who have to think about the spelling that ends with E, the letter E. Can anybody show me? Great. What have we got here? We've got I, good. What else have we got here? Shoe, smile, good. Coffee, excellent. Nose. Yes, some great answers there I can see. Any others we can see? Phone, yes. A lot of people are showing me their phone or a cable. Miss Lengo, I can see you with a cable there. Miss Dayu, what are you holding up? Coffee as well, yes. Me too, yes. Great. Okay, so that's a little icebreaker activity or warm-up activity you can use with your students in class by spelling. It could be shape, it could be color. You can make it challenging by last letter or a combination of letters. So that's something that's easy to do in class online. Okay, so let me just basically look at the framework that I'm going to use today for assessing both speaking and writing. Just as a background, I'm going to look at the CEFR. What are the benefits of the CEFR? Is that it can guide curriculum, but ultimately it helps us decide appropriate tasks to the level of our learners. Sometimes teachers are unsure. Is this too easy? Is this too difficult? But for young learners, it's mostly about, is this appropriate for their cognitive ability at a certain age? Because children, especially young children, cannot think in abstract terms. It has to be more concrete. And even if they have the language for it, they might not understand the instructions for the task because they're not developmentally able to process that type of information. Also, it's useful for a benchmark for across the whole school. If you have multiple English teachers working in the same school, you should all be following a framework that matches from primary 1 to primary 6 and above. But of course, once they change a different school or whatever, that's hard. But for primary 1 to 6, we should all be using a framework or a way to benchmark. So grade 2 should be at which level? What is the benchmark? Grade 4 should be here. Grade 6 should be able to do what by the end of the year. And also the CEFR is an international standard. And if your school offers other languages, especially other European languages like French or German or Spanish, then there's a lot of crossover there, and you can work with the other language teachers to make sure competencies are being achieved. In the handout, you have a link to the actual framework. It's like 260 pages. So if you want to, if you have trouble falling asleep at night, then that's something you can definitely read. But it does have useful information, although it's quite an intense document. Let's take a look at speaking first. The purpose of this first part of the training is to look at the sub-skills, look at the different tasks and suitable and how to do them online or offline. Then we'll take a look at assessment rubrics and feedback, because that's the cycle of assessment. Without feedback, it's not as effective. So let's take a look at the sub-skills. I'm going to do a bit of a brainstorming here. You can either type in the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand and we can hear you talk, if you want to share your ideas. I want to hear from everyone, what are the sub-skills that we test? Speaking is a skill of English, yes, speaking and writing are skills. But when we test speaking, obviously there are parts to that, yes? So what are the sub-skills? And these are often in your assessment rubric criteria. If you follow Cambridge, you might know, but any kind of rubric still has the idea of sub-skills. Let's take a look in the chat box, but if you'd like to share your ideas verbally, then please raise your hand, and Nafal, you can help me with that if anybody wants to talk. Yeah, we've got pronunciation, great. We've got grammar, yep. We've got language, yes. Yeah, clarity and fluidity. Clarity could be of pronunciation, but also of structure and ideas. Yep, great. Yes, vocab, fluency, yes, intonation. Yep, intonation is part of pronunciation. Yep, fluency. Fluency talks about hesitation, how hesitant or how much people can say. Great, okay, yeah, good ideas, everyone. Let's take a look here. Again, I'm using the CEFR and the Cambridge rubric as a reference, but you can add more to this, because I know often schools do different types of tasks, but it's good to have a baseline. It's good to have at least a standard that you can begin from building your own rubric, because it needs to reflect your school's curriculum, your subject's curriculum. So I'm just going to give general ideas about that today. Here are the 3 things that Cambridge includes as sub-criteria. Can anybody unscramble this word in the chat box? What is this word as a sub-skill of speaking? Great, yes, we've got some people quick off the mark there. Yes, it's language, fantastic, that's number 1. Good job, everyone. Next, the second is, what could this be if we unscramble these letters? Yes, great, okay, good, everyone. Excellent. Yes, it's pronunciation. And the third one is, what's this one? This is something everybody has talked about, but they haven't used this word. This is the word that Cambridge uses to put a few ideas together. Does anybody know? I'll give you a clue. It starts with the letter I. The first letter is I. Does anybody know what this could be. I. Okay, still waiting in the chat. Creation, almost. It does use those letters. Into creation, that's almost correct. It's into something. Inter is the beginning of the word. What happens when you talk to somebody else? We call this, yes, that's it. Great. Thank you. Interaction. Thanks, everyone. Maybe there's a slight delay with the chat box coming through. Good job. So the third is interaction. That's what Cambridge decides are the 3 goals. Because for their young learners speaking rubrics, we don't want to have a million things to check because the tests can be quite small. But these also then have further sub-skills. So why have I chosen to use this to talk about assessment today? Well, really, Cambridge are the world's leading experts in EFL and ESL assessment and proficiency. There's a whole range of exams for different levels, so there's a lot of materials and a lot of resources available that you can supplement your course book with. You can use some ideas and adapt your own materials to match the task type. And it's hundreds and thousands of hours of research, millions of test takers a year. So the tests are quite relevant to the age group as well. Some young learner tests I find are not relevant to young learners. They're a bit challenging, but this is appropriate for kids because there's also pictures, that kind of stuff. So here are the 3 basic criteria. But the 3 basic criteria get divided into smaller sub-skills. Okay, because if I test language, what does that mean? What am I actually testing? Pronunciation, it's more than just I can understand you. There are certain things that we can identify as part of each of these sub skills. So it's kind of like they're sub skills, but we'll just call them sub skills again. So if I'm assessing spoken language, again, in the chat box, we can type, what are some of the sub-criteria? First, of course, there are the 2 main ones. There's grammar and there's vocab, but there's more underneath those sub-skills. So when I test grammar or when I'm checking for vocab, what are some of the things I'm checking for? In the chat box, could people write their ideas if you have them? Yeah, use of tenses. Great, Christine. Yep. So that could be accuracy. Can they do it correctly? Or range, are they able to use a range of, you say, what did you do yesterday, and they reply in the past simple? That would be showing that they're able to use the appropriate tense. Comprehension is not for language, for speaking. That is more for the interaction part, when they understand the question. Spelling, no, this is for speaking, so not spelling. Writing we'll look at in the second half of the session today. Sequencing, yeah. So that's like coherence and cohesion. Can they put their ideas together? Okay, intonation, yes, that would be for pronunciation though, not for language. Yes, choice of words, are they appropriate to the task, and are they showing range? Great, we've got some good ideas here. Let's take a look at this in detail. And I'm going to ask you again to try to guess what's missing. The first 2 is what I just said was vocabulary and grammar. But again, each of these has more sub-skills. So when we're assessing speaking, we really need to think of all of the skills we could test and which are appropriate for your age learners. Okay, and I'm going to talk about which are appropriate for which age in this session. So vocabulary. The first thing we look at for vocabulary is called appropriacy. Oh, hello. No? Appropriacy means that they're using the right word for the right thing. The vocabulary is appropriate. Because we don't, this idea of correct, sometimes there's more than one correct answer, but appropriate means it's a bit more flexible. I'll give you an example in just a minute of that. And range. Can they give you a range of vocabulary, or do they use just simple vocabulary? So that is range. For grammar, we are looking at extent. That means how many words in a sentence can they can they say? How much? How much are they talking? Is it words Is it phrases, or is it sentences, or is it sentences with 2 clauses? Is it 2 or 3 sentences? So that's how much they can say. Great. Next, range. Range is, can they use all of the grammar that you are focusing on in your syllabus for that test? So if your test is past simple, present simple, the range would be, can they use those 2 tenses accurately? Yes, for the right kind of purpose there. And control means accuracy, really, here. Can they use the right grammar for the right situation? And how many mistakes are they making? And the last one is cohesion, really only for upper primary. Lower primary, we're not really testing cohesion. And cohesion is things like sentences with joined with but, also, however, on the other hand. Remember, this is speaking. Yeah. What's your favorite food? I really like pizza, and also I like pasta, but pizza is my favorite. So with cohesion, I've used and but. They're simple words, but it's showing that they can link their own ideas together. Yeah. Okay, great. So let's review to see if you understand what I was just talking about. Appropriacy and range. Let's match the meaning to the subskill. Okay, so match 1 and 2 to A and B. I'll give you 10 seconds to read. Okay. So number 1, appropriacy. Is that A or is that B? Can you show me with your hands, everyone? Is it A or B? A or B? Appropriacy. Yeah, appropriacy is number 1, but is the description A, uses a variety of language, or B, uses the correct words? The answer is? Great, Miss Havana, you've got it. Yes, it's B. Good job. Great, Miss Agnes, you've got it too. Yep. Okay. Yes. So appropriacy is using the correct word, and range is using a variety of words. Let me show you an example. If this is a simple test that I would use for primary 1 or 2, or 3, really, depending on your school. If you don't have a lot of English time per week, then this could be appropriate for up to grade 3, maybe. What can you see? Or what's this, as an easy question. For appropriacy, it could be fruit. That's what they see. For range, it could be apple, banana, grape, pear, orange. So it's showing you words in a family, more than just one word answer. Again, this is not looking at grammar yet. This is vocab because there's no grammar there. Yeah, great. Okay, now let's take a look at the next one. Here we have matching the 4 subskills of grammar to the 4 definitions. You can type in the chat box, but I'll also check in just a minute. Match the subskills to their definitions. I'll give you 20 or 30 seconds to do this. Okay. Okay. Let's check the answers one by one. So in the chat box, if you want to, or show me with your hands, number 1, extent, extension, extent. Which is the definition of this? One is, yeah, I think you've got it there. Of course, EVS, you should know all about this. And Miss Nurul, great. So 1, of course, is, yeah. Well, I'm doing it the other way around, silly me. So I'm doing it that way. Okay, so cohesion is A. Uses linking words like and, but, also, then, next, however. Great. B is control, the amount of errors. C is extent. This is how long the answers are. They can have a good score for extent, but maybe control is lower because they're making mistakes. So that, of course, leaves us with D, able to use a variety of structures, ones that are you're focusing on for that test. Yeah. Okay. So this would be an example of good grammar using extent, range, control, and cohesion. For example, I see many different fruits, green and red apples, bananas, green grapes, pears, and an orange. We have here extent, there's 2 sentences. We have here range because we're using a modal verb with can. And we're using a cohesive device with and. Yep, and control, there are no mistakes there. So that would be considered to be a good answer for this task, probably appropriate for grade 2 or 3. Okay, so we've looked at language. The second sub-criteria was pronunciation. So what are some sub-skills for pronunciation? Again, you can type in the chat box. So pronunciation, what do I actually need to listen for that makes good or difficult to understand pronunciation? Intonation, yep, that's great. Thank you in the chat box. Yeah, phonic sounds, great, Miss Christine, thank you. Phonic sounds, so we're looking at the phonemes, individual sounds or blends, depending if that's your focus for kinder or lower primary. Accuracy, yeah, accuracy of individual sounds, yes, I would say so. Fluency, not so much for pronunciation. Fluency comes into the next sub criteria. Choice of words is also vocab, so not for pronunciation. Okay, let's take a look. Individual sounds. So this could be diphthongs. It could be digraphs like ch and f and sh, or it could be individual sounds, long vowel, short vowel. It could be blends, even though blends are not individual sounds. If you're phonics focused, then you're looking for the ability to produce your target sounds or target blends. Stress, yes, Miss Agustin, stress. Great is the next one. And the last one, I think we had this before, if people say intonation. Accent is not something that we test. If somebody has their individual sounds are produced accurately, clearly, the word stress is correct and intonation is correct, then we can understand them. They're called intelligibility. Accent we don't really assess because, I mean, whose accent? I'm Australian. We have we have teachers from all around the world teaching English. So accent in itself we don't assess, but we do assess how clear pronunciation is, and how clear it is based on individual sounds mostly, and then word stress. Yeah, great, thank you. So if you were paying attention, you should be able to match these sub-criteria to the definitions. So individuals, how have I done it? Which word does A match? Emphasizes the syllables correctly. A should match with which letter? A should match with stress. Good. We can have word stress. At higher levels, we're looking at sentence stress, but for young learners, we might not look at that in detail at the moment. The next is intonation, is the ability to have the natural rise and fall. And then, of course, last, we look at the individual sounds, the phonemes or blends if you're phonics focused. If you are doing something like storytelling or a practiced speech or a poetry. This is really the only thing that you're assessing when you're speaking, because if you've given them something to read and remember, you're not testing their language skills. There's no grammar or vocabulary test for that. They're just pronouncing text. So if you are doing that as your speaking task, then pronunciation is just what you're focusing on. If they have to think and respond in real time, then we can assess language. I'll explain that again in a little bit when we look at task type. Okay, and the last one is interaction. Now, what do we think is included in interaction? This is a very general word, and before, people have correctly guessed some ideas, but they were belonging into this criteria. Does anybody know? Again, you can type in the chat box. Fluency, yes. Good. Fluency, yes. Eye contact and gesture, I think that's useful. It's not in the standard Cambridge curriculum because it's so different internationally that it's difficult to actually write a gesture or eye contact curriculum that is appropriate internationally. You could put it in your own school's rubric. That's fine because you're dealing with maybe one culture and therefore you know what to expect. But typically, we wouldn't put that in. Produce appropriate response. Yes. Evie, thank you. The meaning. Yes. Kind of. Yes. Yep. Turn taking if they're testing in pairs, but usually young learners are done individually. A confidence is a good idea. Again, that's something that's a bit more subjective to assess. So you could add that to your standard rubric. Cohesion would be in language. Let's take a look. Responding. So responding is, do they respond appropriately to the question? For example, how old are you? I'm good, thank you. That is not an appropriate response, even though the language they used is correct, but it doesn't make sense for the question. So responding is the ability to listen and answer with an appropriate response. SU. What do we think here? This is something that is not often talked about in other assessment, but it is a big part of Cambridge assessment, is support. Yep. So support is how much help the teacher needs to give. Does that mean the teacher needs to slow down the question, repeat the question, make the question easier, start the story if it's a storytelling, or start the task to give an example, translate a word, which we should really not do for an English speaking test, but if it helps, it's your test, it's your students, it's your choice, it's your life. That doesn't happen obviously in a standard Cambridge exam, but hey, some kids need that extra help. So interaction is how much support the teacher needs to give. Their score is higher if they need less help from the teacher. If they understand all of the questions correctly and don't need the teacher to repeat the question, make the question easier, help them, then their support score could be quite high. And the last one, yes, everyone, is fluency. What do we mean by fluency when it comes to young learners? Really, we talk about how much hesitation and pausing. That's really what we're looking at. Because remember before, we've already assessed extent, how much they say in language. But for interaction, it's how much hesitation. Do they take a long time to answer the question, or are they fast? For young learners, that's what we call fluency. So think of fluency for assessment for young learners as hesitation or stopping, and I think that's not fluent. Yeah. So fluency and hesitation are the kind of opposites of each other, which can help you create your own rubric. So for example, a lot of hesitation, some hesitation, or a little hesitation. That would be the rubric increasing in score. We'll talk about scoring rubrics later. Okay, now if you've been paying attention, you should be able to match these quite simply. Great. Okay, yeah, you can put your answers in the chat box. All of this information is in the handout, and the handout we'll send you a link for the handout at the end of the session. So all of this information is there, plus the links to the documents that I've used for today. Great, thank you. I think everybody's on the right track. Oh, I haven't done the answers there, but yes, it should be. Responding is, yes, follows the instructions or answers the questions correctly. Yes, so it is 1C. Sorry, I haven't put it on the screen, so I'll just type it in the chat box to make sure everybody understands. Support is, yes, how much help. Yes. Yes. So, sorry, responding is B, follows instructions, answers questions correctly, 1B. 2 is C, yes, how much help gives. Thank you, Hedwinder. You've got the right answers there in the chat box. And fluency, how prompt or hesitant the student is. Sometimes people ask me, how long should we wait for a student to respond? You know, you ask a question, there's no answer. You repeat the question, there's still no answer. I would wait, you know, no more than 5 seconds before moving on to the next question. Or if there's a picture or something to point at to help as well, that's useful. I'll talk about task types soon. Okay, so why did we look at the sub-skills first and not the test task types? Is because you need to have your rubric established first. What is it that you're going to test? Because then afterwards, you're able to create assessment tasks that are relevant to your rubric. Otherwise, they don't match. So the first thing, if you are creating your own rubric, do that first. If not, you should know your rubric inside and out. That means, you know, very detailed. And then you'll know which tasks that you can create, because different tasks have different jobs in a speaking test. Okay, so let's take a look at task types. Again, I'm showing you some from Cambridge. There are lots of other ideas possible. So what kinds of questions or tasks do you use? This time, yes, you can type in the chat box, but I'd actually like to hear from someone who would like to share their ideas. Nafal? Can you choose?
Yes.
Can you choose someone? If you want to share your ideas with us, please raise your hand with the reaction button. And I'd like to actually hear from someone because I've been talking for a while. So I would like this to be interactive. We're here to share ideas.
So, okay, so educators, if you want to share your ideas to our session today, you can just unmute yourself automatically, and then say your name and where are you from.
And then tell us the different speaking test tasks that you use in your school or with your students.
Mr. Carr from Penabor, Klapagati.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I teach grade 1. So I have a lot of fun with with my kids because I try to get them to do just fun things. So when I do like a speaking skill, I always try to do it with something that is like sports related. So I said I'll do stuff like lecture I just did with the kids for a speaking skill was dress up like their favorite sport, and then have them tell me 3 things that they like about that sport. So I kind of get them to kind of cover all the bases with something like that.
Great. So is that like a show and tell?
Yeah, kind of sort
in
of.
In the whole group, or is it done individually?
Yeah. No, the whole group. The whole group. I have the whole class do dress up, and
Great.
They went nuts. They had fun.
Yeah, sounds fun. Yeah, it's a great way to assess, kind of secretly assess your students when they think they're doing something that's not actually a test, especially for grade one.
That's why I like grade one.
Yeah, it's great. Yes, you can trick them. Or that they'll generally do what you want them to do, grade one. I enjoy that young learners as well before the attitude.
Also something I do is before every lesson, I do a riddle. So I'll do a riddle like I did today. What goes up but doesn't come down, or what goes up and comes down but doesn't move? So I get the kids to talk and try to figure out what it is, and they'll ask questions. And of course, it's the stairs, so it kind of gets them to get speaking skills and questioning as well.
Yes, and often teachers ask me about problem-solving skills or higher order thinking skills, and riddles like that are sometimes teachers think, oh, I can't teach those skills to lower primary, that higher order thinking skills or problem-solving is not possible in lower level primary English. But with something like a riddle, then that's starting this idea of critical thinking, questioning, and rejecting answers that aren't correct. So that's a great double
whammy.
Yes, that's the way. Yes, getting two things at once: language practice and critical thinking at the same time. Thank you. Thanks for sharing this.
Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else? Anybody else do any other kind of speaking activities?
Yes, me.
Yes. Yeah, great.
Yep.
What's your name and which school are you from, or which city are you from?
Thank you. My name is Miss Sunshine, and I'm from Yahya Christian Primary School in Bandung.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. This is a really interesting question because during the pandemic, it's really hard actually to deliberate assessment for the students, especially to assess their speaking skills.
Yeah.
Therefore, the last time I asked my students to create an informational facts about how awesome Indonesia is, but they have to do it by speaking. They create their own video, and I give them choices in here, as there are some students who are extremely shy. So it's their time for them to explore their speaking skills without have to be shown in the camera. So they can create the video only by using like, voice, and then they create some kind of pictures to be matched in their video. Therefore, I can focus on their intonation, also the way they deliberate their ideas and convince or deliberate the information to the students.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Miss Sunshine. I love your name. Thank you. Yes, and so now with distance learning or online teaching, it does open up more opportunities to us that perhaps there was resistance by parents or school with using some of this technology that now we can incorporate. I'm going to look at kind of two different types of tasks in general. Again, there's such a big topic when we talk about assessment that I'm trying to cover as much as I can today, but there's more information in the handout. We could either have prepared or unprepared. And I think it's useful to have both at some stage in the semester. Prepared could be a video presentation like you talked about, Ms. Sunshine, and somebody else had in the chat box. Could be show and tell, or a short presentation like you said, Mr. Carr, I think it was. You could, recite a poem. That's very young, low-level primary, sing a song, storytelling. Now, this is a type of speaking, but it's not necessarily testing the entire range of speaking skills because it's prepared. We have to have a different rubric for that. And you might need to add different sub-skills. If you're doing storytelling, then you might have like costume, gesture. Some people were saying gesture before, or character's voice. If you're giving a presentation, then it's eye contact, it's materials, it's a lot of different things. So if you're doing a prepared, that means recorded on video, You probably don't have time for everyone to do this to the camera in class, depending on how long it is. That's one type of speaking task. And I think it's good to give them one of these things that they can prepare earlier. And as Miss Sunshine said, those who are shy don't need to have the video on their face, but those who are confident can present with the camera. It's kind of up to them. I'm not focusing too much on this today because these are a little bit easier because they have time to work on it. They have time to prepare. But it doesn't necessarily test as much as a live speaking test. So this can be done, as I said, Flipgrid, record a video, put it on Google Classroom, you know, through Zoom, through whichever platform you're using, if it's short. Unprepared gives us a more of a, it can give us a different aspect of their speaking skills. And I think having a prepared task and an unprepared task gives us a good range of speaking to assess. We have enough content to assess. The good thing about prepared is it doesn't take up class time, or it takes up minimal class time. They can prepare and send it to you. Unprepared, this has to be done mostly, not always. I'm going to show you Nearpod because it has a function of recording on it. That's easy, but it's usually face-to-face. So this might be their end of semester test or a big test. With young learners, even up until grade 6, picture-based tasks help students focus on looking at the picture instead of being nervous by looking at the teacher. It helps them understand the task better and it reduces a lot of stress. If you look at all of the official Cambridge speaking exams, they're very much picture-based for young learners. So you can adapt this. Again, no matter what curriculum you're using or which book you're using or which vocabulary topic, these ideas can be adapted from today. So if we're looking at primary 1 and we're looking at ESL learners, maybe not international student schools, but like beginner, or even kinder, we can show the picture on the screen only. Don't show the questions. We just show the picture of the apple, and the teacher says, "What's this? What color is it? Do you like apples? What's your favorite fruit?" Or whichever questions that you've already practiced in class. So this is single vocabulary. Pictures would be the first and easiest speaking tasks that I would do with my primary 1, even kindergarten perhaps. Can these questions be answered with one word only? What's this? Apple. What color is it? Red. Do you like apples? Yes. What's your favorite fruit? Bananas. So even the students who are lower in their level of English can complete the task easily, but higher level, if they answer in sentences, they can show you their range or their grammar. Yep. What's this? It's an apple. What color is it? The apple is red, or it's red. Do you like apples? Yes, I do. So it has the ability to be quite simple, or students can say more to show you their English. And you can do this with objects. You can do it with any grammar vocabulary topic you're doing. This would be for primary 2 because we're looking at can you. Typically that's a ESL modal. Can is grade 2 from memory. And you can adapt the questions to suit what you've taught. So if you've taught present continuous, if you've taught can for ability, and you've taught WH questions, then you just change the questions to match your curriculum or your unit content. Another activity that you could do is just find some pictures. Again, I've given you a link in the handout to download some sample test papers. Even if you don't use them, the pictures are good for young learners and you can adapt them to suit your own assessment tasks. CambridgeEnglish.org has a lot of materials for teachers. So here, I could just say, what can you see in the picture? I just show students a picture and I ask them what they can see. Here I'm just looking for ball, bird, house, and they can point and just say vocab. For a higher level, I could ask specific questions. Yep. Again, based on the grammar that I've taught them, based on a vocabulary topic that they should know. For higher levels, it could be, tell me what you can see in this picture. And I'm going to show you how this is on Nearpod, what it looks like. So if you're not aware of Nearpod, it's a great free online learning platform. It has lots of different possibilities with content. So here is, you can add a picture and you can add instructions. They can record this and then it gets sent to you and you can assess this. So this would be homework and they record their voice and you can assess outside of class time. So this is good assessment if you don't have time to do live assessment. So tell me what you can see in this picture, press record audio below and speak loudly into the microphone. Say at least 6 sentences. This of course is for upper primary, grade 5, grade 6, who can manage the app and who can understand instructions. Yeah. You would do an example in class. You would practice with a different picture in class, and then you would send a link as homework for them to do. Yeah. So you record audio. You could also do it as a writing task and a speaking task. You could do 2 skills at once. So they can type and they can record. So Nearpod is great because it allows students to record their voice. They could create you could ask them to read the poem on the screen. You could ask them to read the dialogue on the screen. Not a dialogue if it's only one person. You could ask them to read the poem or sing the song. You can also attach music. You can attach video. So it's really quite a good, free, simple site to use. Okay, great. I'll send you the link to that later, and so you can explore it after the session. Okay. Another activity we can do for a live speaking, and you could also you could do this task as a writing as well. You could get them to do this as a writing after or as well. So comparing pictures. The teacher says, these pictures look the same, but some things are different. In picture A, the blanket is orange, but in picture B, the blanket is purple. So you should give a model answer whenever you're doing a speaking test. It helps if it's something that's not just answer the question. What other different things can you see? Okay, would anybody like to be my practice student for this test, just so we can demonstrate 1 or 2 of the answers? Any volunteers? Great. Who has turned their audio on? Who wants?
Nadia, maybe
Okay.
You want to try?
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Hi, Miss Nadia.
Okay, great.
Okay, can you hear my voice?
We can, yes.
Can you hear my voice?
Yes. Which school are you from and in
Yes.
which city are you?
Okay, I'm from Sekolah Tunas Vokab Indonesia from Lampung, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. So,
Okay, I'll try.
Yep, following the pattern. In picture A, some blah, 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 but in picture B, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Something that's different.
Yeah.
Okay?
Before that, actually, before I try to answer, actually, I ever did this to one of my students because she wanted to have a practice for speaking. So actually use this, but I call this information gap picture. Okay. So I think the first one is the scarf. In picture A, there's pink scarf on the floor. And in the picture B, there's no scarf.
Good.
Second one, there is a kangaroo stuffed on the bed. And then the picture B, there's the kangaroo stuff. And then
there isn't sorry,
dolphin
Nadia.
Picture.
Sorry, Nadia. There is a kangaroo in picture B.
Yes.
But where is it?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Bed,
there is a kangaroo stuffed on a bed.
Yep.
Under the bed. For kangaroo stuffed. In the picture B, it is under the bed.
Good. Thank you.
And then there's a dolphin picture on the wall. Dolphin picture on the wall for picture A.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. Dolphin picture on the wall is picture B. Okay. And there's a dolphin picture in A.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. That's enough. I think we have the idea. Yes. So thank you very much for being my volunteer student. Thank you for being brave. Yes. So there's a stuffed kangaroo on the bed. There's a stuffed kangaroo under the bed. So there's kind of prepositions, colors, objects, basic things that you can ask them to compare. Okay, again, you can get them to do that on Nearpod, or you could get them to do that live with you. For flyers, the pictures are more detailed, and the teacher kind of leads the interaction. Again, there's more information in the handout and on the Cambridge website if you want to look at this activity. Also, all of these speaking tests, you can see samples of them on YouTube. So after this session, if you want to look at the Cambridge examiners conduct the test, then take a look at YouTube and it might give you ideas for you how to conduct them as well. Another activity we have, again, a lot of them are picture-based, as you can see. It's called Odd One Out. And so we say to students, look at these 4 pictures. Which one is different and why? So here they have to give reason. So this is another kind of cohesive device using because, if they can use that accurately. Yeah. Anybody like to try this one? How could you describe which one is different and why?
Okay, may we have another volunteer to try on this slide? Okay, it's from Green Edu.
Hello.
Hello.
It's Miss Endang Wibawati, ya? Okay.
Yes. One that is a cake.
Why is it different?
Because all of them are the groups of fruits.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
And orange.
Yeah, great.
And
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Endang. Yes, a banana, a pineapple, and orange are fruit, but a cake is a dessert, or a cake is not a fruit. In a simple way, we could do that too. So here you can choose any 4 pictures that you want to based on the vocab and the topics that you've used in your unit test, or semester, and then you can get students to compare the differences. The next, the next kind of more challenging task is to make a story. This is something that can be as complex or as simple as you want it. Well, as the student is able to do. Here, this is a grade 3-4 movers test, but it's also used for flyers with an extra picture. They use 5 picture frames, and they have to make a story. Again, you could do this as a writing and a speaking task. You could do this on Nearpod, where they have to record their story, and then you can listen to it and assess it later. I think Nearpod's great for that. As long as you practice this in class first with a different story and a different set of pictures. The instructions are basically, these pictures show a story. It's called The Windy Day. So I've got someone drawing on my screen. Is that me? No. Nafal, can you erase that drawing on the screen? Thank you. So it's, yeah, if you are looking for these, you can find them easily. Just Google Cambridge Young Learners Storytelling, and you'll get lots of these. This is where I got it from, but also I'm giving you a link to a whole set of test materials to download. The teacher should start the story or give the instructions at the beginning and then get students to tell the story. We're kind of expecting one sentence from each picture, but higher levels, you can expect more. You can say, okay, in the instructions, please say 2 sentences about each picture. So storytelling is another great one. It really tests their ability for cohesion, to put words and sentences together and to follow from beginning to the end to make a story. So it is quite challenging for some students. Give them time to look at the pictures first, yeah? So this is the same activity, but for grade 5 and 6, there is one more picture. And often the concept of the story is a little bit more complex. The same idea. Another thing that you can do is just the then personal questions. So do you live in a house or an apartment? If that's your topic, if your topic is home, then these could be questions for it. What's important for this one is that you have a variety of question types. So if you are asking this, they're not all yes, no questions. There's some WH, there's some no. And also we can ask a tell me about. A tell me about allows the student to tell you as much as they can. Tell me about your kitchen. It's big, it's hot, it's white, there's a table, and the teacher can then ask some backup questions if the student doesn't say much. So this would be what we call support in interaction. If they give very short answers and you have to ask backup questions, that means you need to give support. So backup questions or follow-up questions, whatever you want to call them, that would be considered support. And the more of those you need to ask, that decreases the score for interaction. Great. For higher level, especially if you're teaching at an international school level, or you've got a strong English program at your school, then your grade 5 and 6 are starting to be ready for what we call abstract interview questions. So it's not questions about themselves personally, it's about the world. And depending on the students, really, grade 5, I think, is still a bit too young in terms of life experience, but grade 6, they can start to think about questions about the world a little bit. Don't make them too difficult. But again, you know your students more than I do. There's a lot of variation within grade 6 around Indonesia and different types of schools. So yes, you can ask this. This is really for grade 6. It's getting them ready for year 7 type of questions there. This could also be a presentation. So if you don't want to do this as a live test, you could do this as you give them questions that they have to answer and they can record a video. They can make animation, they could do it with their face, they could do it with PowerPoint. So giving them those options is quite useful. So there are a lot of different types of assessment tasks. Does anybody do any other type of assessment tasks that we haven't talked about today that you would like to share? Ms. Marwati, yes, we're going to talk about rubrics next. So don't worry, we'll be there soon. In the chat box, yeah. There's really so many different types of speaking tasks to do, but first you need to decide, what am I testing? What's appropriate? And am I doing it live or not? If it's not live, it's a different rubric probably. So I'm going to talk about a rubric that would be a live test. A live test is more challenging. I'm going to talk about that, but we can use the same ideas, I think. So we talk about assessing and reporting and feedback. That's what we're looking at here. So assessing, I've shown you some criteria. I haven't used a rubric. And are there any other options? Okay, so would somebody like to share with the group if they use a standardized rubric or not? And did they create the rubric themselves, or are they using a standardized rubric from whatever curriculum it is that they're following? Maybe from, if you're following Checkpoint for Cambridge, or if you're following a different curriculum, but you have a rubric already. Then we'd like to share. Miss Marwati, could you share with us, please? You've created your own rubric. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please, Miss Marwati?
Hey, Miss Marwati, you can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, this is actually Miss Sunshine, the same
Miss
person.
Sunshine.
But yeah, I'm so sorry. I used to attempt because my computer cannot do not have the facility of the laptop.
Okay, no problem. So when you created your rubric, how did you do that? What did you look at, or how did you decide?
So usually I focus on the students' final goal. So for example, the last time when I asked the students to create the video, so the most important is that they can create their video with the right content and with the right organization or interesting organization. And they can not only inform the listeners, but also inspire the listeners and stuff like that. On the matter of accuracy, I don't really focus that much, but maybe it's more in the fluency for sixth graders.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes, so then you've got a specific rubric for that video task, which then you would create a different rubric for a different speaking task, correct? Some things are similar, but some things might change. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you an example rubric. Again, it's from Cambridge, that is really just for the live speaking test. It's not for a prepared task, not for a presentation, not for that kind of idea, but we can incorporate them together. So you can kind of choose what you think is useful and strengthen your own rubric, perhaps. And Miss Christine is saying that, yes, she uses Checkpoint. So some of these ideas might be familiar. Typically, that's what we're looking at in terms of the CEFR level for standard. This is Cambridge English as a Second Language curriculum. If you're at Checkpoint, you're higher than that. So this is the standard ESL curriculum. But at some stage in primary, they'll hopefully be getting, so this is A1, for example. Now this is not taken from Cambridge, this is from the CEFR. So if you're not wanting to use Cambridge itself, but you want to follow the CEFR, I've sent, in the handout, there's a link to this information. So we're looking at ways that they're assessing. They haven't used the same 3, they've used 5 ideas. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you that there's not one way to assess speaking. There's not one rubric that, one rubric to rule them all. You need to figure out what is appropriate for your school and your curriculum and your level. This is an example of the Cambridge A2 curriculum. So here, if we look at grammar and vocabulary to get a 5, 5 doesn't mean perfect. 5 means you're at A2, which is elementary level. There's beginner, elementary, pre-intermediate, intermediate, upper intermediate, and advanced. So remember when you're creating your rubric that the highest score doesn't mean perfect. The highest score is what is your base level for that class. They can get a 5 for or 100 for their speaking test in grade 1, doesn't mean they're perfect at English. It means they're at pre-A1 level. So make sure you know what your benchmark is. That's why I suggest the CEFR. So here it says, shows a good degree of control over simple grammatical forms. So simple grammatical forms for A2 level. A2 is kind of the end of primary, is what we think of. So it would be present simple, past simple, present continuous, present perfect, future using will. That would be the simple grammar. superlative and comparative we teach also in primary, so that would be in there. Cambridge has a very specific list of what they consider basic grammar, and it's in the handbook, which I've given you a link to as well. It gives you a list of what they should know by A2 level. If you can't find it, I'll tell you how to find it later, but I think I've put the link in the handout. And also uses a range of appropriate vocab for everyday situations, meaning that it's nothing abstract, nothing difficult, nothing challenging, but everyday topics. To get a 3, the only things that change are really the adjectives and adverbs. Can you see? It says good degree of control versus sufficient. Sufficient means I understand what you're saying, but there are a lot of mistakes. So that's the baseline for the level is I understand you, but there are mistakes. To get a higher level means you're showing more vocab and you make less mistakes. Good degree of control doesn't mean perfect for A2. It means that you are very understandable, even though there are mistakes. And a 1 would be that there's not much grammar being shown, maybe very short phrases and not so much maybe present simple, maybe present continuous. And the vocab is just words and phrases. It's not necessarily sentences. So if you're creating your rubric, then you need to know what your at least 3 points are. And if it's between 5 and 3, then we give a 4. We can give a 4.5. You can give a 4.75 if you want to. It's your rubric. It's up to you. But you need to have at least I would say 3 clear descriptions for the scoring. Schools mostly want us to give a score out of 100, so then you just, do the mathematics and make the score out of 100. You could divide the criteria. You could make grammar and vocabulary separate if you want to. There's no, as I said, there's no one perfect rubric. It's up to you. You could have grammar in one. You could have vocabulary in another, pronunciation, interactive communication. Then you could have presentation skills or storytelling skills. And then you just adjust the scoring to make it work for your school, which is usually out of 100. So, just a bit of simple mathematics. But what is going to help you create your rubric is these adjectives and adverbs: good degree, sufficient, limited. So you can go, okay, that's a 3 because there are lots of mistakes, but I understand you. That's typically going to be in the middle score. And you can work up and down from there. Yep, great. Okay. Yeah, so that would be obviously yes. When you're reporting, as we said before, if you're getting them to do something recorded, that's such an easy way for you to listen and fill out a rubric. You can rewatch and you can get really accurate assessment. That's a good thing about the prepared task. When you give them the score, you should give them the specific score. Yeah, pronunciation 3, language 4, interaction 2. And because otherwise, if you just give, you got 70 out of 100, students don't know what to improve on. Yeah. So yes, learners need endless feedback more than they need endless teaching. What do you think this means? Anybody like to share? Anybody like to expand on this idea? This is really kind of, anybody? Nobody? Thanks, Evie. Learners need to improve at all times. Good. Basically, as if whenever we give a test, we should be giving feedback. Otherwise, I kind of compare it to like going to the doctor. The doctor tests you and tells you what's wrong. But if the doctor doesn't tell you how to fix it, then you have no improvement. The doctor says, oh, I'm sorry, you're very sick. Goodbye. Like, what's happening? It's the same as assessment for us as teachers. If we just tell them what's wrong, but not how to fix it, not how to improve, then we're really missing an opportunity. So after the assessment is when we can give feedback. Yep. Thanks, Christine. Yes. And if we're lucky enough to have small class sizes and support from the school, we can tailor individual learning programs or target homework now, target activities. It's so much easier now in terms of technology. Is like, okay, these 6 students did poorly on the grammar part of it, then they get extra grammar worksheet. But these 5, they need to do a different task. I know that's not possible for everyone, especially if you're in a school with 40 students. I understand, but it's helpful if we can do it. Yes. And good feedback is the key to improvement. Yes, we need to show them not just what is wrong, but how to fix it. So if we're looking at error correction can be from meaning or the form or the pronunciation or the use. Maybe you can watch one of my videos on Mentari about that, about language. Yes, example videos or recordings of speaking tests. Let them see other students speaking tasks and link to the assessment rubric. So for example, here, has difficulty distinguishing sh and ch sounds. So instead of just giving them 3 for pronunciation, when you write their speaking test feedback, it would be very useful to identify specifically what it is. Again, it depends on how much time you have, how many students you have. I understand there's lots of different situations, but even just a little bit of personal feedback, more than just a score, can be helpful. Answers questions using words and short phrases only, doesn't use complete sentences, or needed questions to be repeated often. So it's up to you to how to deliver this. For higher primary students, they should be able to read your comments. For lower level, you might want to speak to them. You might want to tell them. You might want to talk to their parents if their parents, or send an email to their parents saying, this is the speaking score and this is why. Again, everyone is different in how they deal with feedback, but some kind of personal feedback is really useful. If you're having an issue with the whole class, then of course you can do extra activities with everyone if you're hearing the same problem repeated. But it's really important to give feedback after assessment. Is there anything else that we should consider about speaking assessment? Maybe just because of time, if you have a question, maybe write it down, and in the Q&A, I can come back to this later if there's any other questions about speaking, because I need to move on to writing because of time. Okay, so if you have any more questions about speaking assessment, please save them for our Q&A session. Okay, but just to summarize, make sure that students are given practice for all speaking task types that will be used for assessment. Don't give them something completely new for assessment if they haven't practiced it first. And if you make your own, make sure that they are appropriate. We're not asking grade 1s to give a PowerPoint presentation, you know, but as Mr. Carr said before, they can dress up as their favorite sport and say a few sentences. That's a good way to do a presentation that is appropriate for a young learner. Pictures, or props or activities really help. Okay, before we start talking about writing, let's do some chair yoga. Let's do some stretches. Everybody, oh, I've been sitting down for far too long. If anybody needs a 1-minute break to do something, now's the time to do it. Yes, we can do some breathing as well, get some oxygen into our brains to help us focus. Good. Excellent. Good. Okay. Are we focused, everyone, and ready for the writing stage? Great. We'll get to your questions at the end of the session, everyone. So yes, please still feel free to type your questions in the chat box, but I'll ask you again to put your questions at the end of the session. So writing. Why are we looking at speaking and writing today? Is because writing and speaking are both productive. And so therefore, we assess some of the same sub-criteria. Okay. We're going to look at the sub-skills of writing, different tasks, and rubric. That's the same thing because they're both productive tasks. Sub-skills. Okay, so quickly in the chat box, if everybody could type, which sub-skills do you test? Some of them will be the same as speaking, but of course some will be different. Grammar, thank you. Grammar. Use of vocab. Spelling, yes. Spelling replaces pronunciation, basically. So pronunciation obviously is for speaking, but for writing it's spelling and punctuation. Yep, good. Coherence, yes. Grammar, spelling, yep, great. Okay, perfect. Let's take a look. This one before we had, what was the unscrambled word, if you remember it from before? Thank you. Language, fantastic. This is the new word. Yes, everyone, great content. Perfect, thank you. Next. Oh. What is this word? I think someone's got it in the chat box. Miss Ivana, yes, it's organization. Fantastic, good job. The sub-criteria are slightly different. So we have grammar and vocab. The first one is still appropriacy. The second one is still range. Can they use a range of words? But the last one here is, what do people think in the chat box again? Spelling, yep, that's it. Great, good job. Okay. Grammar is extent, meaning how long are the sentences that they're writing. Range is how many different structures can they use? Is it just present simple that they're using, or are they using different tenses? And control, yes, well, that one wasn't hidden. That was hardly difficult. Good. Control is about how many mistakes they make with grammar. Okay. Again, let's match here. Appropriacy, range, and spelling. Okay. Let's give you a little bit of time. Great. Okay, let's take a look. Yes. Appropriacy is the correct words used. B is the range, meaning the variety of words, and spelling is words spelled correctly. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Extent, range, and control. We looked at these before, so I'm just going to quickly check these. This is, yep, great. Look at how long the answers are. So extent, so if the sentences are short or long. Great. The range, again, how many grammatical tenses are they able to use, and also control about mistakes. Now this is something new. So this is something now that I would like to hear from people. Take a look at the box and see or guess which words are missing. Matches task something, level of something, and something else there. Okay, this is new. So any ideas? Matches, task, in. in. What do students usually have to read before they write? They have to read the... Anyone? Instructions. Good. So does the answer match the task? As in, can they follow the instructions? Next is level of deet. Great, Miss Angelina. Level of detail, great, Dave. Yes, level of detail, fantastic. So, you know, if you're asking them to write a short story, is it how much detail is given, even if they're writing long answers? And the last one is, yeah, great, everyone, repetition. Repetition of ideas, but also repetition of vocabulary where they're not replacing it with pronouns or other options or describing it, you know, in a different way. Let's quickly match these descriptors to the sub-criteria. Okay, great. Again, yes, a simple matching just to see if everyone's still paying attention. Great, thank you. Yes, repetition, how frequently words or ideas are repeated, especially for upper primary when they are writing longer sentences or paragraphs. Yes, how accurate it is in relation to the questions or the instructions, and how frequent and how much information is given. Yeah. Great. And the last one we're looking at, organization, follows logical something, something that starts with pun and something that starts with koh. So the first one, follows logical. Thinking, Miss Angelina, good idea, but not exactly correct. But good idea, yes. Follows logical. Order, yes, everyone, good. Follows logical order. Next, pun, yeah, I think that's an easy one, punctuation. Why is this? Sometimes people put this as part of grammar, but I like to put it as part of organization because that's really what punctuation does. It helps us organize text. So I like to separate it out from grammar to give it more focus, because grammar already has a lot of other criteria. So I put it in there so I can focus on it. And cohesion. Yep. Coherence. Coherence is follows logical order. So coherence talks about the text from beginning to end, but cohesion talks about words like and, so, therefore, however, but. Yeah. Again, just quickly match these. Great, everyone. Good. Great. Thank you. Okay, let's take a look. Yes, it's CAB. Logical order, meaning that structure is appropriate to the task type. Now, what do I mean by task type and what do I mean by that? Would someone like to answer? Someone like to talk about that? We'll choose a volunteer. Miss Bernadetta, would you like to talk about that? I can see you nodding your head, but maybe you're talking to somebody else. Anybody? Anybody like to share what this means about appropriate to the task type? What does that mean?
Okay, so perhaps we can have another volunteer to talk more. It's Miss Evelyn Diawati Gunawan. Say something on the chat box, Mr. Todd.
Yes, Miss Evie. Would you like to give us some examples or explain what you want to say? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, so let's say you are asking the student to write a narrative of course, they need to think about the plot of the story, the characters, the settings. But let's say if they and even if you ask them to write about different kinds of text, like describing things, they need to follow certain kinds of order. Let's say, like, is it chronological order or spatial order, something like that.
Great, thank you. And even though the Ujian Nacional has changed now, I still think writing by text type is important and relevant because the flow or the order is different for different task types. Yes, so an essay is different to a narrative, which is different to a short story, different to a instructional piece, yeah, or a recipe, or a how-to. So follows logical order really is dependent on the task. And maybe you want to have a different rubric for different task writing types. That's also possible. I'm just trying to give you ideas today and not tell you exactly what to do. Thank you, Evie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Oh, and use of linkers, connectors, and sequences. What do I mean by that? And can someone give me some examples? Who would like to volunteer about what linkers and connectors and sequences are, and giving me some examples of those and how we can use them in text? Anybody like to share?
Okay, perhaps another volunteer to share his or her idea.
Anybody? Mr. Nafal, then maybe you just choose a volunteer then.
I think Mr. Day said something. Sequences could be various adverbials of time.
Great. Okay, Dave, can you, if you're happy to share with us, can you unmute your microphone?
Yeah, so I was thinking various adverbials of time, like the next day or the following morning, or various little phrases like that to sequence the text logically.
Great. And so what kind of task would you give to test this skill?
Well, it might be writing a story. It could be a sort of fictional narrative with you know, changes of time and those adverbials used to sequence the paragraph.
Yeah, great, thank you. So this raises my point that I made in the first part, but want to make again, is that your rubric needs to then reflect the task type. Otherwise, how can they demonstrate that without giving the right task? For example, an information piece could be testing cause and effect between some environmental problem, or it could be, as you said, time adverbials for a narrative, or it could be writing a biography with, you know, first, after that, next, or even an instructional piece. So making sure that the tasks give the students the ability to use those skills that you're testing so that they can get the highest score possible. Great. And thank you. The punctuation is used correctly to support meaning. Again, based on whatever punctuation that you've focused on for that semester. You could get them to simply give them a paragraph with no punctuation, and to get them to punctuate would be a specific skill. Also, something that I haven't really talked about is you don't have to test all of these skills with every writing task. Especially for young learners, they're not able to do this yet. So you can target shorter, simpler writing assessment tasks based on one of the sub-skills only. If you only want to test punctuation, then you just give them a paragraph without any punctuation. So it doesn't have to be all of these skills every assessment task, especially for young learners, because they're not able to. Maybe you're just checking spelling. Maybe you're just checking grammar by doing a change the verb tense activity. You don't have to put them all together every time. As they get older, of course, then you will start to get them to do more complex tasks. As I said before, make sure you know your rubric so you know what to plan. What type of questions do we have here? Let me show you, and then we'll discuss other ideas afterwards just because of time. I want to make sure I've got enough time to show you all of the ideas. Again, prepared writing. Writing can be done live, timed, like in an official test, or it can be done as homework. And I think both are good to do. One, we want to test, can they write in a test situation because that's necessary for school, but also as a homework task when they can spend more time to do something creative with it. So prepared, yep, project, story with pictures, poem, poster, booklet. They can do this outside of class time, but do the process work in class. But what about live writing tests? This could be as simple as labeling a picture up to writing a whole text. So depending on your level, you should be able to evaluate what is appropriate for them. Again, just because it's writing doesn't mean we can't use pictures. Pictures are really useful. That's why the storytelling with pictures, it could be done as speaking, but it can also be done effectively with writing. What is one of the biggest problems that we have with students when it comes to writing? Mister, I don't know what to write. I have no ideas. So by giving them pictures, we can help them focus on the writing and less on the, how do I start this? What do I do? Especially in a formal test situation. Okay, this is a bit of an ordering activity for everyone. Just again, to make sure we're all paying attention. Sorry, it's Friday afternoon. Hopefully I'm not stressing your brains out too much, but please put these activities in order from easiest to most difficult, okay? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are pretty much the standard writing output that we would expect from the easiest to the most challenging, okay? You don't need to put your answers in the chat box. We're going to do this by physical response answering, okay? Just to get our bodies moving, get us focused. I think we only have, yes, we're in the last quarter of the session. Okay, so I want you to show me with your hands the letter that is the easiest. So what is number 1? Show me the letter. Is it A or B or C or D or E, F, G? We're going to have to be a bit creative with G. G is a complicated letter to make. So what do we think is number 1? Can you show me the letter of the alphabet with your hands? Can you show me, everyone? Okay, good, great. It is B. Yes, label the picture. That's the easiest one. Next, what is number 2? Can you show me the letter? Number 2 is? We have to be a bit creative with our responses here. I think we're seeing F mostly. What do we think? Yes, gap fill sentences. F is next. Good. Yeah, F. Do a big F. It's hard in front of a camera. Next, the answer for number 3. What's number 3? The letter is? Number 3. What's the next easiest? I'm seeing some people. Yep, just a few. Everybody come on, show me your, good, okay. Yes, it is G. G is a hard one to make. Yes, so G is, the sentences give it, so for example, it would be, I like. It's a little bit different to a gap fill. A gap fill means that we're only missing one word, but a sentence beginning is they have to write more than one word to finish the sentence, yeah? I live, for example, I like. For lunch, I eat, and they have to give you more than one word answers. Okay, next, what is number 4? Can you show me the letter, please, with your hands? Number 4. What is the answer to number 4? What's next? Is it paragraph, text, sentences, or complete a paragraph? Yes, great. Thank you for those showing me their hands. It's D. Yep, sentences are easier than a paragraph. Complete a paragraph means write the end of the paragraph. If it's a gap fill, complete the paragraph, well then that's gap fill, and that's a bit easier. Next is, what's next? Is it A, C, or E? Which one is next? Can you show me with your hands? Which one is easier, to complete a paragraph, to write a paragraph, or to write a text? Which one is not a text message, a whole text? Could Miss Dayu, thank you, Daya Ayu, great. Everyone, thank you so much for those who are showing me the answers. Fantastic. The next one, of course, is, which one is easier, paragraph or text? It's a paragraph, fantastic. And then a text. Maybe your grade 6 are not at this stage, but maybe they are. If they're following Cambridge checkpoint for sure, even if they're following or like international or first language. But maybe for most of you, a paragraph would be your grade 6 goal. Yeah. Paragraph could be an email, a letter, a short story, 1 paragraph. Great. Thanks, everyone. So which tasks are appropriate for which levels? Let's look at pre-A1. Pre-A1 is the lowest level of proficiency. It's basically words and phrases. So for Cambridge, this is an example. If you're creating your own written tests for grade 1, one of the first things that you can do is words, spelling. Yep, spelling is still very much the focus for lower level primary. To make this more difficult, you don't give them the letters. Unscrambling the word without a picture, though, is a bit difficult sometimes. So I would say picture and gaps with or without letters, but don't give letters, gaps, and no picture, because then it's quite a challenging task. So which writing skills is this testing? Miss, I'm going to choose someone. I'm going to choose a volunteer. Or Nafal, you can choose someone. Maybe Miss,
okay.
Yeah, choose someone. Maybe we don't have a volunteer, but we'll just choose a volunteer.
Okay, perhaps Mr. Satrio Yoga.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yes.
So which writing skills is this testing? It's one of the easiest writing tests we can do, but which skills is it testing?
Which skills? So
yeah.
The language.
So vocab, it's not really testing grammar, but vocab, good. And what are the other skills is it testing?
The spelling itself.
Good, yes. And also maybe if you're still focusing on handwriting, it could also be the mechanics of writing. So this is a spelling and a vocab test. Good, the easiest way to start writing. What about this one here? What type of thank you, thank you. Another volunteer. Which writing skills is this testing? This is the gap fill, and we have the words with pictures to help understanding. So which writing skills is this testing? Who would like to answer that question?
Okay,
or Nafal,
so
can you choose
who's
someone?
ready? Maybe now I can see if you are ready to answer. Okay, perhaps I will choose the Miss Ariani.
Good.
Is Miss Ariani here? Okay.
Are you there? Okay, maybe we'll choose Somebody else? Miss Stephanie Jessica? Miss Stephanie Jessica, are you there? Hello? Oh, yeah.
Not in a moment.
Okay, there's always sometimes some issues with internet connection or people being shy. Is it Miss Lengo? Miss Lengo Geni? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Is this testing spelling, this activity?
I think it's testing vocabulary.
Yeah, good. And it's particularly testing the meaning of vocabulary, yeah?
Yes.
Because it's not testing spelling because they already have the words there for them. So it's just a vocabulary test. So this is more of a reading test, but with Cambridge for Young Learners, they put reading and writing together because they're hard to separate at this age group. Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you so much. What about this one? If the task is look at the pictures, read the questions, and write one-word answers. Again, this is testing vocabulary because one-word answers is not grammar. It's testing vocabulary, and therefore also it's testing spelling. So again, this is a good test for a low-level learner, but reading and writing are combined here. So make sure your rubric reflects that. It is spelling and it's vocab meaning. Okay. For example, easy task for writing and reading for young learners. So what's the focus for pre-A1 writing competencies? It's correct word use, spelling, and basically words only. We're not asking for sentences yet. So if you are asking your grade ones to write sentences for writing tests, just make sure that you have practiced this in class. If they can do this in class and you have a strong English program, then of course you can test at A1 level. But this is kind of the beginning. And content answers task correctly, but there's no organization. So for my pre-A1 rubric, there's no organization because they're not writing anything really apart from one word. So again, that would be for A1. Let's take a look next at that's pre-A1. This is now A1 English. So this is a gap fill, but what is different from the last gap fill is that there are no pictures, obviously, to make it a bit more challenging. And if we look at the words, this is not only testing vocabulary. What else is it testing? Miss Ivana, are you there? Would you like to share your ideas?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So in the last test, it was testing vocabulary because it had pictures of nouns. But here the gap fill is things like is, are, was. So it's not just testing vocab, it's also testing?
Grammar.
Yes. So gap fills, if you're creating your own gap fill, you can create a vocab test gap fill and a grammar testing gap fill, yeah? By doing this kind of verb form, prepositions, words that are similar, like what, which, and where. So gap fill can be made more challenging or easier based on what your goals are. So don't always think, oh, gap fill too easy for my students. Gap fill actually can be quite challenging if you make the options grammatically focused versus just vocab focused, or both, or collocations, or whatever it is that you're focusing on in your lesson. Thank you. The next, another part before there's a reading, and this is sentence completion. Sentence completion. You can use 1, 2, or 3 words. So what is this testing? What skills is this testing? The writing skills. Is it testing vocabulary? Yes. Is it testing spelling? Yes. Is it testing grammar? A little bit, yes. It's not it's not really testing organization of ideas yet because there's not enough text. It's just a few words. Great. Again, look, read, and write. Complete the sentences. We have some at the top here that just have some words missing, but then we have answer the question, and then we have write your own sentence. So here you can see a very clear progression of easy, medium, difficult. When you are creating your writing test as well as your speaking test, you should always have a variety of questions. Not everything should be too easy. Not everything should be too difficult. Not everybody should get 100%. Not everybody should get 0%. So when you create your assessment tasks, always start with easy questions, yes, then have some medium questions, and then have some more challenging questions. That means that you are testing a full range of students' ability, and that some students will be able to get some right, most students will get most right, and the stronger students can get them all right. So one thing that, yeah, this brings up is the complexity of your questions and tasks. Make sure that there is variety. Not everything is too easy, not everything is too difficult. Okay? Great. Yes, this is testing grammar, vocab, it's testing spelling, it's testing appropriacy, it's testing range about the two sentences. What grammar are they going to use? So this is a good test for middle primary. So what's the focus here? Correct word use, spelling, extent. We're testing words, phrases, and full sentences. Yep. We're testing control and range. And we're also testing content. Are we testing organization yet? Not really, because we're still just looking at one sentence responses that are not connected to each other. So we're still looking at content. We're not looking at organization yet. Okay, now let's look at the last stage, A2. This is another gap fill, and I'm going to ask somebody else to volunteer to speak. Miss Vonnie, are you there? Miss Vonnie Sinaga? Hey, Miss Vonnie, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Where are you? Which city in Indonesia are you in at the moment?
I'm in Parakan.
Okay, where is that?
Near to Temanggung. Yeah.
Okay, and which island is that on?
It's still in Central Java.
Okay, great, thank you. And which school do you teach at?
I teach in SD Kristen Krista Citra.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today. Can you look at the writing test example on the screen? And
Okay.
can you tell me which writing skills is this testing? For example, spelling, grammar, vocabulary.
I think first will be on the vocabulary, and then next will be on the grammar.
Good.
And I think it needs also student comprehension.
Yeah.
To understand the text.
Yes, it also relies on reading skills. So if you're doing this kind of task, perhaps in your writing rubric, you also need to put a reading comprehension score as well, because it's really two skills together. So that's something else that we need to consider is what is being tested, and is the rubric reflecting that? Thank you so much, Miss.
Okay, welcome.
Helping me out today. Thank you. Again, this can be as easy or as challenging as you want to make a gap fill. Next. Okay, what's this task? It's similar to the one before. It's a story and sentence completion. But this time it can be writing 1, 2, 3, or 4 words. And which skills is this testing? Miss Lita, are you there? Miss Lita Tiafani Sari? Good afternoon. Miss Lita, are you there or have you run away? Suddenly the camera goes off. No, okay. Um, Miss Astri Rahmawati, Miss Astri, would you like to turn your microphone on? Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Where are you today? Which city are you in?
Okay, I'm from Bandung City. I teach for primary
Great, thank you. And which skill?
5 in Al Irshad Satya Islamic School.
Great, thank you. Which skills are being tested in this writing task?
It looks like reading comprehension for me.
Yep, good. Yes, but it's also part of writing. So in terms of writing, what is being tested here?
In organization?
Not so much. It's still kind of more the basic levels of vocab.
Vocabulary?
Yep, spelling.
Oh, I see.
Is it testing grammar?
Wait a sec, I can't see clearly. Oh, yes.
Yeah, they have to know which type of word, and maybe they need to put an article like Sarah climbs a mango tree. So they have to have reading comprehension, but also they need to have grammar understanding of which words from the text that they need to transfer into the answers. Yeah, thank you, Miss.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, that's another example. We're not at the pure writing task level yet. What is this task? This is a gap fill, but there are no answers given. There are no choices given. So it's called an open gap fill. They're not given any choices. This is more difficult, yes? So what is this testing?
Perhaps can we give it to Miss Janan?
Yes,
perhaps.
Sure.
Okay, so Miss or Mr. Janan Nabila. Okay. There is no response so far.
Okay, actually, just because we're almost out of time, actually, I didn't realize what time it was. Let me just quickly just explain this so we can finish on time. This is, of course, again, testing grammar and vocab, particularly spelling and comprehension of the sentence. The grammar means they know what type of word is missing. With giving no choices, that makes it quite challenging. So this might be good for your upper primary level. And finally, for the Young Learners exam, Cambridge does do the same thing as the storytelling with the speaking, but instead they give 3 pictures and they have to write a story. This then tests all the skills that we want to test. It's grammar, vocab, it's content, and it's organization as well. So that's when we're getting to the stage. Maybe you think your grade 4 students are ready to do this. That's you know that better. You know your students, you know what they're capable of. But that's just the Cambridge standard. You can increase the word limit. 20 words is not very much. 20 words might be okay for your grade 5, or even maybe your grade 4, or maybe even your grade 3. So I'm just here today to show you some activity ideas. Pictures really help with writing because it gives them something to write about, and they're not wasting time with getting lost with ideas. If you want them to write something free, then that's a good homework task. Then they have time to think. But if this is a timed in-class writing assessment, maybe when you're back in school next year, pictures really help them do the task in the time. If your students are at a higher level, maybe they're ready for key exam. So key exam is the lowest exam for grade 6 and up. Another gap fill. Again, there's a link to the sample test materials. An open gap fill, and then we have a complete paragraph that they need to write. This is an email. Again, 25 words isn't very much. Maybe you want to give them 30 words, 35 words. It really is so flexible with what you want to do, but just make sure you know what you're trying to assess, which of the sub skills. Yeah. And again, a picture story that's not quite as childlike for young teens. Yeah, okay. The focus here is really for all of the skills that we looked at before. Organization now becomes a part of it. Can they put their ideas into order? How we know that is giving them a story or giving them an email or a short text to write. Okay. Here is an example of the A2 Writing Rubric. Again, this is in your handout, so we don't have time to really talk about it, sorry, but we're looking at those 3 skills. So when you're creating your rubric, you're looking at what makes a difference between the different scores. And with writing, it comes a lot down to being understood versus mistakes. Again, this is available in the handout later for you to read or refer to or get ideas from. Writing, yes. When we give feedback after writing, especially after a writing test, hopefully we've done this as a practice already in class. You can give them feedback about the process, about planning, error correction, or specifically linked to the assessment rubric, as in you didn't give enough content or there was no flow to the story. It didn't make any sense from the beginning and to the end. Okay, make sure that for speaking and writing, that they have practiced all of those assessment tasks in class before, at least parts of them, maybe not the whole test, but parts of the test. That the task is appropriate to the age and the level of English, and visual stimuli help a lot with writing assessment. Students can get ideas for content more easily, so they can focus on writing and not focusing on ideas so much. For young learners, it helps. Okay, Nafal.
Okay.
I'll hand it back over to you. It's Q&A time. We have maybe time for 1 or 2 questions only. Sorry, it's
okay.
A lot of ideas to cover today. It's hard to do both of those skills in 2 hours. Usually it would be 2 hours for each skill we would talk about, but hopefully everybody got some ideas today. If any questions, it's question time.
Okay, so thank you for Mr. Todd Cordy for your wonderful and informative session about online assessment tasks for speaking and writing. So hopefully today's training will be very useful. And now we open for the Q&A session. I think I'd like to look for a question from the participants. So if you have a question.
Yeah, we had some questions earlier, Nafal. Maybe about half an hour ago, there were some questions. So maybe look back through the chat box, or for those people who didn't get their question answered, you could type your question again or copy and paste your question again so we can see it.
So I think to save our time, I found a question from Miss Elise Amalia. Could you tell me the most important thing in speaking and how do the students achieve it well?
The most important thing is in speaking. If we are looking for the main skill that will increase score in terms of like IELTS and in terms of Cambridge exams, in terms of official speaking things, it's how much they say. It's better to encourage students to be more fluent and say more rather than say less and be more accurate. So fluency is more valued than accuracy. As long as we can understand you. If you make mistakes, it's okay, but as long as you express your ideas. So really, for speaking, encourage them to just speak more. That's really the most important thing. If there are some mistakes, no big deal. We can work on that. But if they don't say anything, we cannot assess nothing. It's like if a student write a story and they have one sentence, how do I assess one sentence? It's the same as speaking. So the more they speak, that's what we should encourage. Extent, speak more, give more information, add another sentence, add another adjective. It's the same as also in writing, write more. although with writing, accuracy is a bit more important. Thank you. Great question. Next.
Okay. Wait for a second. I found a question from Mr. Yoga. I think he asked about how to assess our students' speaking assessment. Is it okay if we talk more about the positive than the negative one? I think he is asking about more like how to assess our students more efficiently in the speaking.
Yes, again, if you use like Google Classroom, it can have inbuilt rubrics that will automatically send the scores and comments to the student. So there are ways that technology deals with this. I think if you're giving feedback to your students, positive and constructive feedback is useful. So instead of something like you only spoke in words, the feedback would be try to use sentences. So just put what is a negative into a positive to encourage versus saying don't do that or that wasn't good. But next time, try to use complete sentences. Try to say at least 2 sentences for each picture. So tell them what to do and how to improve versus what was wrong. Yeah. Ms. Marawati asked about giving online feedback for writing that's effective. You've got 60 students in grade 6. Whoa, yes. This is one of the key things that is like the curse of the higher level English teacher is writing, homework, correction, and assessment. What I do is you create your rubric or list of common comments, because you'll find that you'll have common comments for a lot of students. So you have your checklist and you check the things that they need to do. So for example, you've got be careful of your punctuation, be careful of your spelling, make sure your introduction is stronger. So write down the standard comments, and then all you need to do is tick the boxes that are relevant to that student. So you don't need to write the comments every time, you're just checking a box. This can be done through an online form, or it can be done through a form that you fill out or print and tick physically if you're back at school to save time. So it's kind of like a checklist for you to then fill out. Okay. And I would say also for writing, just focus on maybe 3 or 4 areas to improve. Maybe they need more, but choose the 3 biggest problems. Otherwise, they'll be overwhelmed. So if it's like spelling, grammar, or whatever it is, be specific. Have your checklist, and then just tick for that for individual students. You could put a score with the checklist as well. The checklist should reflect the rubric. So your checklist could be instead the areas that they should focus on next time. So it could be spelling, grammar, vocabulary choice, and then after you give them the score, you give them the list of these are your top 3 things to focus on for next time. That could be an effective way to give some personal feedback, but you don't have time to write 60 individual reports. Yeah, it could be organization. It could be conjunctions. It could be, and so you just have the checklist and you just tick the 3 focus areas for them for the next writing task. That could be effective. But in addition to the rubric that they have the score, the checklist is separate. The checklist is basically these things you need to focus on next time. 1, 2, 3. And the rubric is the score. Okay, I think that's all the time we have questions for, but now, there is a way to contact us.
Okay.
For people who have more questions. Would you like to? Thanks, Ms. Marawati. Thank you for your question.
Okay, so thank you again, Mr. Todd. So, well, educators, I'm so sorry since our time is up, so I have to end the Q&A session, but you don't have to worry. If you still have more questions to discuss with us, you can contact us on the email on the WhatsApp number on your screen. So I think you can just give a quick screenshot and then keep it for a while and then send